Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Very good friends. Uh, Today we have a kind of different lecture, and that is basically based on the recent development around the world, in which a new world is in fact emanating from this COVID-19. So the article of the day is mainly concerned with the new normal, which is basically a term which has been coined by uh, the demographers and the specialists and the experts in the businesses. To formally start with the recitation from the Holy Quran, uh, I will recite the prayers and dua of Hazrat Adam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. The background of these prayers of the Hazrat Adam, father of humanity, is that when the Adam and Eve, Hazrat Hawa, the mother of the humanity and the human beings, they were deceived by the Satan, and then they were advised the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go to the earth. So at that time, Hazrat Adam had learned few sentences from the Holy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with these sentences he offered his submission to solicit the blessings of Allah, and he said that we have been cruel to ourselves, we have done hard on ourselves by touching by going to the tree which was forbidden for them. And if the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not forgive us or could not forgive us, then certainly we will be the bigger losers in here and hereafter. So Sadaqallahu Azim. The topic is a bit interesting, and I was just looking for change in the topics because we are consistently talking about very technical topics. So this is based on some research paper study that how the word is going to be a new word and how the word is going to be a new development is going on. So the title of the talk is The New Normal, COVID-19 and Afterwards. Just to have an historical review that how the COVID can be compared to the Black Death of the 14th century, which rewrote the human genome, and this was one of the history was changed. The 1918 global flu pandemic helped topple the empires because this pandemic created big disasters in the Europe, and ultimately it led to the collapse of many empires in Europe. The global recession, which is just recently, almost 10 or 12 years back, we remember that there has been a global recession, and this led to the changes from workplace automation to travel policies. Now the question is that what will be the new normal that emerges in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis? So this is now a very big discussion. Now we are expecting that the COVID-19 has forced a sudden economic shift from physical to digital. So this is very new development that the post-COVID-19 world has to be more digital. Companies can use data analytics and other digital tools to strengthen the business resilience, customer relationship, technology systems, and operations. So this will be another very big development that more data analytics will be used and digital tools will be used, and less physical contact with the customer, with the end user will be ensured. And thirdly, that the executives and the senior management who take proactive steps now can put their companies in a better position for the new normal. So some of the things we have done, we have discussed here. For example, a digitally enabled war room is required that at all levels of the organizations, we need to have a very strong digital tool to track the customer closely, to increase the supply chain transparency so that the people who otherwise would not like to go to the stores quite often would like to see the tracking of their products which they have ordered. And certainly these orders will not be some specialty orders. Even the daily commodities will be ordered through the online e-commerce and things like that. And the traditional planning methods have to be changed to a scenario trigger based planning, that what can be the different scenarios in the post-COVID-19 and how can we plan for these scenarios. The rapidly changing environment, there should be a very good forecasting system with the organizations, and they must be deploying the modern tools to see that what can happen. Now this change which we are expecting in the future scenarios is not only will be a very rapid, but also it will be very frequent. So the frequency of change will be very high, and the uncertainty level will also be very high. So we have to be very careful both about the frequency of change and the uncertainty associated with these changes. We have to develop a digital experience with the customers, though this has been increased in the last almost 10 to 20 years, when the majority of the customers are now shifting to the e-commerce and e-businesses, and they are using their cell phones and their smartphones to connect with the different businesses. But certainly we have to enhance this relationship by bringing more and more customers into the this net of the digital customers. The technology investment certainly has to be very important, and unfortunately a big number of businesses in Pakistan have not yet responded to the technological innovations in the businesses, and they could see that in the COVID-19, the businesses which had already a very strong technology platforms were still surviving in a very hard status. The automation has to be accelerated. Certainly, the processes, the procedures, the projects, and everything we do in the businesses have to be certainly automated, and that these have to be certainly improved towards cost saving. We cannot expect that we will be having the same level of income from our customers. So certainly, if we don't have the revenue which we were having before the COVID-19, then certainly we have to reduce our cost, and the cost accounting and cost saving should be a very strong tool in the automation process. The workforce has to be very agile and distributed. Another very big challenge is that you will not be able to gather the large number of groups working at the same place. So you have to have distributed teams at different places, and then you should have a very strong connectivity through different digital tools and technology platforms with them, and then they should be very smart and agile to respond to the changing environment. Now, when you look at this broader picture, there can be three fundamental aspects. The first is that the present scenario, and certainly in the present scenario, the more important is to protect the people from the pandemic. and in the lockdown condition, how can we certainly save our stakeholders, our customers, our students, our faculty, and also at the same time trying to protect the businesses and institutions. So this is certainly one of the biggest challenge, because the high level of this pandemic at one side, and the rate of fatalities, and the fear which has been created. So certainly the businesses are not supposed to be normal in this phase, and we have to protect the businesses and the institutions one way or the other way. Once this COVID-19 is over, and we expect that by the end of this year, maybe within the next 5 to 6 months, we can have a better scenario in which we can, this pandemic will be over, inshallah, to a greater extent. And what can be the short-term scenario and the short-term challenges to the various organizations, and how can we respond? And then certainly this is a new era in a post-pandemic world. So certainly we have to then see that how can we adopt the transformations in the different sectors, and how these transformations can be done for a longer perspective, because there is a certainly an understanding by the epidemic specialist and the pandemic specialist that this kind of pandemics would reoccur in the next future. So the long-term perspective is also very important, that how would we respond to such kind of events in the future, maybe 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road. Now, when we talk about the global trade, certainly the global trade has got the highest burn, and you see that there is no air travel. The ships have been, their movement have been stopped to greater extent. They are not allowed to move from one part of the world to the other part, and certainly this has brought a very severe impact to the globalization, because the globalized world was more connected, more dependent, but now we are going to the isolation, we are going to the compartmentalization, and people are, and the businesses are moving away from each other. So the biggest threat we can see is to come to the supply chain strategies, in which the suppliers from one region would be preferred. We, for some time in the next future, for few years, at least for 5 years, we see that the international trade has to be more and more regional trade, and the regions would more depend on each other to reduce the time and the exposure of the freights. Pandemic will drive risk mitigation procedure designed to track employee health, reduce human-to-human interactions, and upgrade ventilation and physical barriers. So this is another very important development, that the health of the employees would become the top priority, and the human contact has to be reduced, and we have to go for the online and for the virtual kind of solutions. Emerging automation technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence, vision systems will be used to reduce the physical contact. So the post-COVID-19 scenario will be more based on the lesser physical contact amongst the human beings. Therefore, we will be using the modern technologies like augmented realities, virtual realities, artificial intelligence, vision systems, and so on. Adaptive manufacturing in 3D technology and 3D printing for speed, cost, and material efficiency would become another, that instead of going to the people would prefer to develop the 3D printing products which can be customized to the individual needs. The overseas and offshore production may shift. This is another, and that's why the more production will be focused even on the nearshoring and offshore. Instead of overseas, it will be coming to the near shore, near the country, or near the coastal areas, and even near the cities. So this will bring a new system of production, which will be more based on the internal productions. Now, the technology and innovations, we see that more digital payments and online payments, and we could see that even in the entire uh, COVID-19, we could see that even a bigger number, even more than 50% of the payments are made in the online payments and digital payments. Maybe in the future, the bitcoins like things which are not allowed at the moment would become, and it may be legalized. Video conferencing and net meeting, we have been using the various platforms for the video conferencing, net meeting, online meetings, online classes, and things like that. And the next generations of the uh, uh, human beings would be more attracted towards augmented realities, which will be more like a modeling, simulations, artificial intelligence, and the sensor technologies are creating and of course the robotics. Collaborative remote online working, yes, uh, the aggregation are placing a large number of people at one place would become more risky in the post-COVID-19, and there we have to bring with the mechanism in which we can diversify the students, the faculty, the staff, so that they are not exposed uh, to the uh, to the risk. And then we would definitely need for some creative technologies. And so the emerging technologies, which are some of these are, for example, the robotics, which are used to fight the COVID-19 for the disinfection of rooms, communicating with the quarantine and delivering medications. Drones are controlling public areas to conduct thermal imaging, spray disinfectant, and ensure compliance with the social distancing directives. Use of artificial intelligence for the surveillance and security patrolling, use of 3D printer for manufacturing of ventilators, ethical issues of privacy may trigger. So when we are using these technologies like the drone, robots, and artificial intelligence, and certainly the private data and the privacy of people would be affected, and we may think of the ethical issues. Entrepreneurs are already beginning to innovate for the new normal to participate and seize the upside. Large corporations must both address the short term and the innovator for the long term value. Now, the societal impacts are more deeper in the sense that the biggest impact is the health and safety challenges, because the healthcare facilities could not prove efficient in the current scenario, and we have learned that still we have a big gap in the healthcare facilities. Even with the very advanced nations, we have the problems. So the first and the foremost societal need would be to strengthen the healthcare facilities, which don't have the capacity to deal with the magnitude of these kind of pandemics. Large segment of society can't afford the treatment. Even in the developed countries, still a large number of people cannot afford the very expensive treatment involving the use of ventilators and other important treatments. Social distancing or physical distancing is coming a more vulnerable for the daily wage workers, because they have no employment, and a large number of contract employees have been laid off. More demand for consumer to play the societal role by businesses to save the people safety and jobs. So this would become a very big demand from the business community, that they should save not only the people but also their jobs, and they should be giving them appropriate safety. Increased cooperations between public and private sectors, partnership can play leading role. Now, this is becoming really very important. That we have seen even in the COVID-19, in the current situation, that there is a need to strengthen the relationship between the public and private concerns, and the post-COVID-19 will certainly believe in a more cooperation and more collaboration between the public and private sectors. And finally, the corporate social responsibility and the standard of societal roles by the businesses would become more and more eminent, and it would become a very high expectations would be done by the people from the businesses. So this is a double challenge, in the sense that they have also to save their businesses, but at the same time, they have also to respond to the high level of the expectations of the people in society. Now, the generation, for example, the people, uh, we believe that uh, the, the we got the baby boomers after the worldwide economic growth, and then we have the Gen Z, first digital natives were created out of the first climate emergency. And for the generation coming up behind Gen Z, the post-pandemic new normal will just in the normal. So the people who will be quite young now and who are in their early ages, certainly they will not be more conversant with the pre-COVID-19 world. So for them, the new normal would become the normal because by year 2030, almost 2.7 billion people in the age of 19 or younger will have very little or no experience of the pre-COVID world. And for them, the new normal will be just normal. So this will be really very difficult for the people who are of our generations or who are in the present in the 30s and 40s and even the 20s. They would not be, there will be a very big gap in the perceptions of the people who come as a new generation who are growing. The normal will be based on different assumptions and expectations related to society, technology, and ethics, and the role of private companies in providing public goods. So this would be really very important. Now, the behavioral shifts, which is more like a psychological impacts of this post the pandemic, this will have certainly a very lasting effect on the consumer psychology, the safety of the products, the safe transport of the product, the safety of the business places, the safety of workplaces would become definitely a very high level of understanding. The experience of a large number casualty of nears and dears may create change in the human approach of life. While the pervasive sense of risk and uncertainty create a spike in demand for products and experiences that provide comfort. So we could see that a large number of people have been died who have a lot of money, and so there will be kind of thinking that this work and life business balance should be demanded by the people, and maybe this balance is more shifting to the personal life rather than the work, and the life would be more preferred because the unfortunate incidents of the death of the thousands of people, hundreds, thousands of people of the very years and years are certainly having a very great impact on the memories of people, and they would like to explore more comforts. Business would need behave, and this is also the case where the spirituality will play its role, and we expect that the people would become more religious, and the people would be more spiritually trying to strengthen their spiritual and other things rather than the material comfort. Businesses would need behavioral experts to deal with. Now, this is a very important challenge, that the dimension of this impact is very large, and there will be need for the behavioral and psychologists. The pandemics and epidemics have always shattered the trust and confidence of societies. This again is very important, that the trust of the society in the people, in the governance system, in the government, in the institutions, would definitely erode, and this will bring a lot of governance issues. The blaming within the nation and within the region for spread of the infections will also lead to polarization, and we are witnessing to that another a big debate or a big discussion has been started between America and China, who are certainly alleging and counter-alleging to blame that the COVID-19 has been deliberately prepared or to create a demand for these certain goods in the world. So this is certainly a blame, and this blame game would continue for a very long time, which will further polarize the world, and the world can even face some war-like situation. And some of the experts can also predict that this may be something like World War III. The role of media can be very critical to reduce these conflicts. Unfortunately, so far the media in the developing countries particularly have not been providing a very effective and positive role to to provide relief to the people and to provide them the spirituality and contentment. Rather, the issues have been highlighted unnecessarily, and this has created a lot of hype in the developing countries about the corona. So the role of media in the post-COVID-19 has to be very different and very important. Now, the education will certainly have a lot of impacts because millions and billions of youth who are in different school, colleges, and universities, they are being affected due to the physical distancing. The young kids are certainly more vulnerable, and they cannot be exposed to the COVID-19 situation. So one way or the other way, the schools have been enclosed, and we are working on different options to continue with this. So we have two challenges with us at the campuses. The first challenge is to ensure the security and safety of the employees, the staff, and the students once the universities are open. And the second very bigger challenge is to ensure that their education journey is not disrupted, and certainly they are continuing with their education. So these are the two very important considerations. For this, COVID-19 has become a catalyst for educational institutions worldwide to search for innovative solutions in a relatively short period of time. So the blended learning, distance learning, online education, and all these have become really very important for different regions of the world. Learning at home, online classes, blended classes, distance learning, and use of various technologies like Google Classroom, Zoom, MS Teams, Hangouts. These are becoming really very important now in this new scenario. And similarly, the live TV and radio broadcast, video conferencing, and things like that. The public-private sector partnership may grow. And the reason is basically that both the public and private partners would not be able now to compete for everything, and they would now like to set together to share their resources and to develop the products which can bring some revenue to both of them. For example, the education has predominantly been provided by the government. This could become a prevalent and consequential trend to future education. The digital divide could widen. Only 60% of the global population is online. And even we talk about the places like Gilgit-Baltistan, we are facing even more shortages, and certainly the students are remote. Inaccessible area will be further deprived due to poor connectivity, slow speed of internet, and poor capacity of people to afford the digital gadgets and things like that. So what we are expecting, the equity a challenge that the majority of the higher institutions have been forced to close. The digital divide between the rich and the poor, the urban and the rural, the elite can further increase the gap. And majority of the HEIs may be exercising the online and blended education, but the equity would remain a main challenge, because as we have already discussed, that the poverty, the accessibility, the technology all together would make a very big difference between the accessible and the people who can afford and those who can't. The quality is another very big issue in the online and blended learning programs, and certainly we have to explore the new ways to ensure the quality. The worst effect we can expect on the science and technology programs, where not only the teaching online is important, but at the same time to develop their psychomotor or their skills and attitudes, we would like to have their laboratory work, which is an essential component of the degree program. And at the same time, in the medical education, engineering education, we need site visits, we need the clinical expertise and the clinical experience, so which cannot be possible very effectively in the COVID-19 in the online system. The simulation models and things like that are possible, but certainly the universities don't have that capacity, and again the tools are highly expensive, and the time is also very short to adjust. Now the pipeline effect is that this again is unfortunately that since we are promoting the students without the exams, so there will be certainly a low level of score in the students are even passed on the margins. So this will have a very big pipeline effect in which a big number of the students who can otherwise cannot pass in the normal system would be pushed to go to the universities, and this will certainly create a lot of challenge of quality to the pipeline effect. The research again will be more focused on the COVID-related research, but the research funding will also be affected because the majority of the countries in the Europe and Americas and even the China, the Far East, which were mainly the sponsors in Australia and New Zealand, which were sponsoring the research, have been affected badly by these pandemics. And it is believed that they would take a lot of time to recover from this great disaster. So certainly the funding for research has to be shortened, but at the same time, it is also believed that in the next 5 to 6 years or 10 years, more research will be focused on solving the issues in the post-COVID-19 world. So the universities have now to really take care of their research direction. The graduate unemployment is also to increase because the businesses are going into the recession. We are expecting an immediate 10% shortfall in the GDP of the world, which amounts to about $9 to $10 trillion. And this will certainly lead to the layoff of many people. And certainly for the new graduates, we cannot expect a lot of new positions. The private higher educations are again in the bigger challenges because they are not given the funding from the public, and if the fee are not recovered in time due to the COVID-19 and the online system which they have deployed is not working efficiently, then certainly the operational cost has to be very high. And if they continue with the same level of the human resource, then definitely it would become impossible for them to sponsor. And so this is now the biggest challenge for the private school colleges and universities to survive in this most challenging situation. But at the same time, it will be also very unfortunate if the private institutions, either in the school, colleges, or universities, are closed due to the financial emergencies, because this will have a lot of impact on the employment of people, on the quality of the education, because a good number of private institutions are providing good quality education in the country, across the developing countries. Now, the responses can be two very important responses we need to develop. The first is that we go for the blended education as an option. This is, I think, the most important, and the university today, we have already developed these systems for the years and years. They are now in a very comfortable position and they don't have any problem. But certainly the universities which are remote, which are still in the early stage of our age of their development, they may not be having a very robust system. Alhamdulillah, in the Karakoram International University, Gilgit, we have deployed a very robust learning management system, and we are going to the blended education stage 2 from the June 1st. Currently, we are going in the phase 1, which is an experimental and test phase, and from June 1 onwards, we are going to regularly teach the courses, selective courses, and then if by 15 July, the universities are further extended the closure, then certainly we would go for the full online education. The second challenge is the financial survival of the higher education institutions, because at the moment, the universities are facing a deficit of the revenue to the extent of 20 to 25% across the world. And certainly this would be a big challenge in the time to come if the admissions are further delayed and we are not able to attract the students. Another impact is that since the students and their families and parents could not do businesses for a long time, so therefore their economic situation is also not very comfortable to pay the fee to the institutions. So this will be again a very big issue for us to survive. Online delivery and blended learning have the issues like poor connectivity and speed of the internet, the readiness of the faculty, staff, and students. The blended education may be developed as a solution because the online education may not be available at every place, at every nook and corner of the country. Online and blended education policy in place needed to be approved. Partnership with other educational institutes may be explored. That how can we use their resources, their common resources, open resources to optimize the cost. The financial impact, we cannot track the funding from the government, but unfortunately, the government is also not in a very good position, so we cannot expect a bigger funding from the. But at the same time, we can work with international partners, the private institutions, and certainly we can have more focused research on the COVID-19. Collaboration with private and public sector for research funding. This is really very important. Online and blended education we discussed to rationalize the cost and the cost rationalization of the operations. Cost saving is really very important now. So the active learning in online classes would require the conceptual mapping, the frequent brainstorming, the collaborative writing, the case study-based instruction, cooperative learning, role-playing, simulation, project-based learning, peer teaching. So these are some of the options, because the challenges of the online educations are quite different than the formal systems, and we have to understand these dynamics. While not all active learning activities are possible during online classes, many are enhanced by technology, so we can use the different technologies, simulations, videos to enhance the active learning in the online classes. Studies have shown that online classes are particularly helpful for encouraging collaborative learning, in which we can make the teams, discussion portals, blogs, and we can have more and more discussion on the topics. Now the challenge is certainly very high in the blended education. For example, the low attendance and student retention is one of the biggest challenges. Technical difficulties are barrier to the use of online courses. Blended or online learning asks that students take more responsibility for their learning, transforming them from passive to active learners. And here the motivation of the students by the faculty would be really very important. The students may need more motivation, organization, and discipline to be able to be successful. The availability of working internet connections, electronic devices such as laptops, mobile phones, and even existence of the suitable learning environment will be some of the challenges which we will also face in the Gilgit-Baltistan. Now, to improve the online and blended education, we can improve the interactive tools so that the courses are customized to the online teaching. The second is to utilize the face-to-face component where possible. I believe that in the post-COVID-19 situation, it may not be very possible, but certainly we are talking about the tutorial supports. We are talking about the facilitation center for students. We are talking about the follow-up with the student through social media and so on. The supported engagement of the students in the constructive communication, involvement in the discussions, and regular feedback from the students are really very important. It is also very important to set a very clear expectations before the students and the faculty, because this is a transformative process, and it is not just like a teaching in the class. So right from the beginning, the students should be very clearly informed about the expectations of the online learning, the outcome of the online learning, and how these outcome would be enhanced. Now, an important issue which we discussed while developing the assessment system, I believe in the online system, the continuous assessment should be more stronger instead of the mid and the end-term or semester test, because the administration of the test, online test, can be more and more difficult when we talk about the mid and the end semesters. But certainly we can bring a lot of case studies, we can bring the group discussions, we can bring the individual assignments, we can give them the project for the evaluations, we can give them some open book test and take home test in which they can go and discuss, and they can send us online these tests within a specified period. So certainly all these options can be exercised, but my personal experience with the online education is that as you have more and more continuous assessment, the reliance on the mid-semester and the end exam would reduce, and that we are thinking about reducing the uh, the end semester and mid semester evaluations to 40% and the continuous assessment to 60%. Now the assessment should also be very flexible, very friendly, and it should not compromise the quality standards, but certainly it should not be just rigid like classroom, so that the students are encouraged and motivated to come to the online classes, and they must be given some incentive for attracting towards the online classes. A very important challenge which I also face as Vice Chancellor is the mindset change. Still a large number of the faculty is sitting in their houses, in the remote areas, and they are telling us that they are not accessible. So this mindset has to be changed, and we have to bring a qualitative and quantitative improvement and this is not very easy when we are dealing particularly with the students, their parents and faculty, because their mindset of the few are really very different, and they would never believe that this would make any change. But certainly, we are very clear about our goals and objectives, and we have to push this online and blended learning system so that we can take the benefit from it, and we can ensure the continuity in the education system of the students. So the teaching has to be teaching student-centered or the learning-centered rather than the teaching-centered. So more and more activities online can be planned so that the students are given the lectures. They may read the lectures at home, and in the classes we can have a lot of discussions. So ladies and gentlemen, today we discuss the COVID-19 scenario to the businesses and how the education is going to be affected. One of my article, which has been published in the newspapers on the challenges and opportunities of online education or blended learning in the Gilgit-Baltistan. And so this is a 3-episode lecture which I will discuss sometime in the future. So thank you very much. And I pray in the holy months of in the holy nights that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all and us with a safety and security from this COVID-19. And very soon this COVID-19 is over, so that we can go back to the work, we can back to the campus, and we can work with the students to save their time and their precious life. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.